Afternoon, Lions. It's glad to be able to talk to some Brent students again. So I am Miguel Uico. I am a former Brent student, as Olivia mentioned, from the batch of 2016, and I did go to Santa Clara University for college. I'm now actually the managing director of the PCCI Innovation Center in Pasay. Mr. Fulo actually reached out to me to be a part of your discussion today. And since you guys clearly have an interest in tech and innovation, I felt I could just share, a few words about as a former Brent student who's now working in the tech industry. So let's begin. Okay. All right, so let's begin our discussion today. So Korea, China, and Japan, right? These are some examples of leading countries in Asia. And what makes them really different from here in the Philippines? Let me ask you that. And let's bring up a quick example here. So Korea, right? So when we think of Korea, you think of a high-tech, advanced society, right? Lots of innovation happening there, lots of startups. It's lots of capital going around. It's a very developed country. But on the opposite of the spectrum, right? We have the North Korea, right? So it's just like kind of black and white with the difference. But in the early 1960s, however, South Korea and North Korea had actually pretty similar levels of economic development, right? So both countries had just gone through the brutal Korean War, and as such, economic development was very low. And in 1961, the South Korean GDP was only, $80 per person. However, this quickly began to change as the South Korean government began to pay extra attention to technology development and innovation to promote national growth. So in 1962, the South Korean government launched a 5-year plan to improve its economy. The government had promoted the inward transfer of foreign technologies to gain industrial prowess from its global neighbors and began to educate its labor force. And within 4 years out of the 5-year plan, the South Korean GDP increased by almost 8%, largely due to this increase in R&D and technology. Now, I won't bore you with more specifics about these programs, but the South Korean government just continued to heavily invest in science and technology for the following years. The labor force became more educated, not just by studying at university, but also by having hands-on experience with the latest foreign technologies. And today, South Korea is far more developed than it was many decades ago. So innovation and technology are really the key factors that have underpinned South Korean competitiveness and fueled the country's remarkable economic rise over the past decades. Both government policy and entrepreneurial spirit in the private sector fueled this radical change. The same goes for China and Japan as other examples. Japan, right, they revolutionized manufacturing technology with techniques such as a just-in-time manufacturing technique, as this is also called the Toyota production system, to those who know. This technique essentially, just reduce waste, boost productivity, and encourage continuous improvement, meaning that workers and managers would actually, get together every day and discuss, okay, how can we improve some of these manufacturing techniques and what we're doing and whatnot. This just wasn't for Toyota and the auto industry. This technique, this innovative technique went through across all the different industries in Japan. It's not just manufacturing, many different industries have that now as a result. So ultimately, this innovation, right, of the new Toyota production system resulted in substantially higher quality products and services at lower prices than the competition across a multitude of industries. Another example, right? Let's go with China. So China liberalized its economy starting in the mid-70s, and entrepreneurs started to sprout out all over the country. So by adopting a more open economy and prioritizing education, China created an environment in which entrepreneurs and innovators could thrive in. It was able to foster the growth of its economy and expand from being, simply a predominantly rural country where mainly people got around with bicycles, right, to becoming an industrial powerhouse with the largest high-speed rail network in the world even. So it's just such a dramatic difference that 50 years has made in China, for example, because of the sheer will for innovating. So these countries not only figured out the importance of innovation, but they also strive to implement it successfully. Both the public and private sectors were key in fueling this, this remarkable growth. And so bringing this back to the Philippines, as it's no secret that we're not as developed as, China, Korea, and Japan, right? But despite this, the Philippines has actually begun to recognize the importance of the role of technology in economic development. So accordingly, we have been on the path of improving growth in our STEM-related field. So let me just share a few graphs real quick. So here, like, for example, year after year, we're getting a lot more STEM graduates than ever before, right? So in just 3 years, we jumped from rank 26 of 18, we went from rank 26 to 18 out of 129 ranked countries, according to ASEAN. Accordingly, our global innovation rankings have also greatly improved. So in the span of just 5 years, we went from ranking 83 out of 141 countries to rank 50. So that is certainly an impressive leap given the time that's elapsed. But, I think we still can actually do better. There's still lots of room to grow. So I'm sure you guys know that the Philippines is actually the biggest overseas workers-oriented economy in the world. So while this is a key part of the Philippine economy, this unfortunately means that sometimes people have to leave our country to find opportunities that the Philippines cannot provide at home. So this results in many bright minds and skilled laborers just leaving the country because of the promise of a better life elsewhere. So one country, let's use this as an example, one country that many overseas foreign workers flock to is actually the USA. In fact, most Filipinos outside of the Philippines actually reside in the USA and predominantly in the California Bay Area, which is the home of Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley is simply the home of innovation and entrepreneurs. So for example, Apple's just started out of a garage, right? They started out of a garage in a neighborhood I used to live next to in California. So who would have known that, two hippies making computers in their garage would spawn a $2 trillion technology company that took over the world by storm. And Apple and so many others startup success stories had their roots in Silicon Valley. It's a place where technology, risk, and the entrepreneurial spirit can all come together to transform small startups into some of the most important and powerful companies on the planet. So hosting a plethora of high-end educational institutes, willing investors, and an incredible social network of entrepreneurs, people from all over the world have flocked to Silicon Valley to partake in the startup magic that has made this California region so incredible. So if you got a dream and an idea, chances are you can make it happen in Silicon Valley because of these key characteristics. So they kind of got us thinking, right, at the PCCI. Why don't we just make our own Silicon Valley? Right? Why don't we make our own Silicon Valley right here in the Philippines? So let me give you some context to this. So when I studied at Santa Clara University, I also worked at the Chioca Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I saw firsthand the power of an innovation center, education, networking, pitch delivery practice, like you name it, all of the integral parts of launching a startup were addressed and mentored at the Innovation Center. The quintessential startup experience at all conveniently, right, under one roof. So as I said before, we were thinking, why don't we do that, right? So, well, that's something we've been working on for over a year now. And I'm glad to share that we've just recently launched a PCCI Innovation Center. So in a nutshell, right, our goal is to reach out to the entrepreneurs and innovators in our country, just such as yourselves, right? With our major partners like Huawei, we are committed to providing hands-on learning opportunities such as courses for AI, machine learning, and coding, right? We'll generate a business accelerator for local startups as well, and have some exciting new potential partners that we are in talks with right now to make sure that this is going to be a reality. So I'm envisioning the PCCI Innovation Center to be the one-stop shop to turn innovative ideas that you guys have, that the Philippines has, into full-fledged companies, right? While we do not have as many innovation centers as Silicon Valley does, we are still very committed to being the spearhead in this effort of promoting innovation and entrepreneurship in the Philippines. So the center aims to prepare the next generation, which is you guys, to thrive in a more startup-oriented and technology-driven workforce. So let me just give you guys like some quick pictures of the place. So this is our facility. You can see there's a lot of tables and workspaces where entrepreneurs and students are going to be working at once COVID is over, of course. And this is our maker lab. So this is actually my favorite part of the place. So we have lots of tools where entrepreneurs and innovators can, interact with technology firsthand. So we even have a 3D printer. That's something that a lot of people don't typically have access to, but it's key for innovators and entrepreneurs if they have to make rapid prototypes of objects in CAD design and whatnot. It's a very helpful tool to have in stock. As I mentioned before, Huawei is also one of our partners, and they're also going to be providing like AI training kits as well to this part for the innovation center, so people can have hands-on experience with tinkering with AI code and all that. Yeah, we just have conference rooms. If you got startups, you can meet with VCs and whatnot. Just meet with your teams. Yeah. That's pretty much it. So I guess I'll just be closing here because I think I'm running out of time. So people in the private and public sector in the Philippines have realized that we have really no choice but to move forward. So the Philippines has so much potential, and the Philippines, the Filipino deserves more. The thought process that occurs during innovation is really the most valuable resource of any country, of any entrepreneur, any inventor, or any individual. So what we must realize is that the Philippines is not lacking in its skill, ambition, or resources. The lack of innovation is what has separated the Philippines predominantly from the other more developed countries in the world. However, as I've shown you, we are not resting idle. We are behind some sort of, we are a little behind our Asian neighbors in terms of economic development, of course, but don't feel discouraged because there is still a chance to catch up. The government and private sectors understand the need for innovation and have likewise invested heavily into innovation and tech initiatives. We must continue to push to prioritize technical and STEM related education efforts like our neighbors have when they were in their growth stages. And while there is still a long way to go, I have no doubt in my mind that the Philippines will one day become just as advanced as some of our more advanced neighbors. So as you guys finish up high school, I just want to tell you to stay passionate and keep on learning. You guys go to Brand, so I know y'all are a bunch of smart and driven individuals. So while the pandemic has dampened some of our enthusiasm, the future is looking very bright for you guys. Soon you guys will be going off to college, and believe me, it's going to go by very quickly. So while you're in university, I want you all to try new things, expand your horizons, open up your perspectives, and learn about the world around you. Let your creative minds run free. Honestly, that's how you get inspiration to maybe even start up the next big thing. So in ending today, I just wanted to share one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs, an innovator and entrepreneur that I've always looked up to. The ones who are crazy enough to change the world are the ones who do. Thank you all for listening.